Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the HR and Payroll 2.0 podcast. I'm Pete Tiliakis, and as always, I'm joined by the legendary Julie Fernandez. Welcome, Julie.
Thanks so much, Pete. And we're going to have just a bad old time today, I think.
Yeah, trouble. Look, man, I'm when I invite my friends, it's always trouble. But these guys are phenomenal. So I'm super excited to have, I guess it would be about maybe 2/3 of the Payroll BADIes squad here, the gang, the payroll gang, if that's a thing. And just excited to have them, man. Todd Acevedo from SAP SuccessFactors and Imran Sajid from EPI-USE. Welcome to the HR Payroll 2.0 podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Happy to be
We're excited to be here.
We're big listeners of your podcast as well, fellow Work Defined, so shout out to you, Pete. I got to give you credit. We would not be in Work Defined if it were not for you. You gave us that OG suggestion. And look, it's been great, right? We got to do the live podcast at HR Tech, right?
Yeah.
We got to meet with so many people. So appreciate that. And thanks for all you do for the payroll space.
Yeah, I love it, man. I love it. And I love y'all's show, man. You guys are swag-tastic. I got to say, man, shout out. And Julie, we got to get you a...
We do.
I know,
get Julie a
I
chain.
have the red, but I don't have my baddies wear at all.
I don't feel good about that.
I'm rocking the ATO. I'm rocking the Deion Sanders today.
Oh, the Deion Sanders. Man, that's probably worth a lot there, Pete.
I love Coach Prime. I bought this recently, but I love Coach Prime. And big fan of the Braves. I grew up watching the Braves. So yeah, I'm not so much Falcons. I'm more of a Tampa fan.
You guys are killing us this year. And, I know you went that game at the beginning of the year that I was going to go to, but I'll give you the respect. Appreciate you wearing the Braves one, though.
Yeah, man. Well, I appreciate having extra ATLiens come on here, man. So, all right, Julie, do you want to do the honors and then we're going to get into this?
Yes, indeed. As both of these guys know, we like to ask exactly how the heck you got into payroll and why you stay. So who's going first?
Yeah.
So, since I'm the old, mine starts in 1900, right?
The OG.
So,
the OG.
Yeah. Which explains this and, what's going on back here.
A little self-disclosure, TMI going on here, Todd.
Yeah, exactly. And why I have to stand up, because if I sit down, I might not stand up again.
You fall asleep.
Listen, I started in 1993 out of college. I ran into an ADP rep randomly as a banker. He said, "You're not a banker. You need to talk to my boss." And then that was it. I went into payroll, worked for almost every major vendor since then, almost about half of those through acquisition, interestingly. So I thought, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it right. So in 96, I got my certified payroll professional credential, and then followed by the SHRM credential or HRCI, whatever it was back then. And been involved in various committees and national, now global committees around payroll and payroll execution, payroll strategy, global payroll. But that's my story. I'm the payroll nerd. I always tell people the same thing. Look, at a cocktail party, they'll say, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" And I always say, "Look, I'll give you the 2-minute version, then I'm going to check in with you and we'll go 5 if you want." I haven't had anybody take me up on the 5-minute version, but I got through the 2-minute version with everybody.
I did.
Yeah. You guys don't count. None of the 3 of you count. But
a lot of people, when you're telling them you're in payroll, they're thinking, "Why?
Why exactly?"
Awesome, man. What keeps you here, man? Why do you stick around?
Well, it just never ending problems, and so like my day is completely different. Like people ask me, "Well, what does a day look like?" I'm like, there is no, like, I'll tell you what I did today, but it's going to be different tomorrow and different on Monday, and so that's really it's just super, for me, exciting. It's all time based and accuracy based, and the business runs on it, and like I always think of like plumbing is really important. Nobody cares about it until it breaks, and then everybody's in a world of shit, right? So I don't know. Is your podcast NSFW?
Our podcast is anything we want it to be. You can say whatever you want on here. Yeah.
So that I'm the plumber of the business enterprise, right?
I love it.
I'm into it.
We appreciate you, man.
Listeners, mute yourselves now. Mute us now.
Yeah. So Todd, Julie has coined payroll as an extreme sport that we maybe need to market to kids. Well, kids, younger folks coming into the market, kids to us, as maybe an option, right? The extreme sport of payroll.
That's the story I just heard Todd tell. I heard he's an extreme payroll dude, and that's what makes it wild.
Well,
Yeah.
and to Pete's point, my kid, my oldest is an engineer and works in implementing payroll and time for EY, right? So she caught the bug. She heard, basically she said, "Dad, how do you do, like, what do you do? And how do
Yeah.
I, this is when we were touring colleges." And I said, "Well, so she's basically asked me, what kind of degree should I get?" And she's a STEM kid. So I immediately just said, go do that. And then you can pick, right?
Yeah.
But I'm in the payroll, she knew, and she's heard about payroll stories over dinner. So it worked. And she's now, like in her 7th year postgraduate,
Awesome.
kicking ass in payroll and time.
You hit
Awesome.
your
Awesome.
quota. Now we just
I
need
know,
you to
I know.
get a few more. Bring them, bring them.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Yeah. Getting that university out there and start recruiting,
Yeah,
All
awesome.
right.
It's awesome.
Imran, what's your, when were you drafted?
Yeah. So look, one thing I'm impressed with Todd, right? Like we talked about, you give the 2-minute speech, and people are like, "No, I'm good." For me, like I don't think my family will even hear, what it is you do. They do ask questions like, "Why are you always ordering a bunch of gold chains, and why do you have these outfits that always come to the house?" Right. So I sparked a little bit of curiosity there, but somehow this
Yeah.
dude Todd actually got his daughter to follow in his footsteps. So that's quite a sales job there, Todd. Like,
Yeah.
respect to
Hats
you on
off,
that.
yeah.
In terms of my career, so I think I'm going to give the answer. Listen, I've listened to a lot of your episodes, and I know this is the most common answer. I didn't choose it, right? I kind of fell into it. So my background was in consulting. So I had an IT, a CIS degree from Georgia State, and so that was my background. I knew I wanted to get into consulting, and so I had a friend that was doing SAP consulting, and quite honestly, he was killing it. Right, he high billable rate, doing really well, well paid. And I was like, hey, I want to do that. And so
Yeah.
then I picked, like, I want to get into SAP consulting. So I joined a consulting company, and got into that. And so it just happened to be the module that I worked on was HR. And so for me, the first
Yeah.
area I worked on was actually time management. So I set up a bunch of specific time rules and learned that business. And then, consulting being consulting, our most senior guy left, and they were like, "Hey, we need you to jump in with payroll." And time and payroll go well together. And I was like,
Yeah.
sure, let's do it. And so then I went in and started learning it. And I will say the thing that's been interesting. So I started in consulting, but I think that the thing that gives me somewhat of a unique point of view is that I've seen payroll from most angles, right? So
Yeah.
I started my career actually implementing it, and then actually helping with like people running it as well from the technical side. So I've seen the IT side of it. Then when I joined and left and then joined SAP, I actually saw it from the education side. So educating people on how you configure it, how you set it up. Then I joined product management. So how do you actually build payroll software? And then after that, more this is where Todd and I work really heavily together. I worked in product marketing. So how do you launch a payroll and go to market with it? Right. And so Todd and I then also worked on a lot of like sales cycles. And now in my role today, I kind of run a business. So I do a little bit of everything. So I pre-sales, sales, so I'm able to see all aspects of it, and which it's fascinating because at the beginning of my career, I would have said like, well, why doesn't SAP just build this and this and this and this? I might have been hypercritical. But then when I was on the SAP side, I'm like, well, now I know why you don't build all of this stuff, and the compliance aspects of it and other aspects. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's how I got into it in a very long-winded way.
Yeah. I love it. Why do you stay, man? What keeps you here?
The community, man. The community.
Yeah.
If I had to answer in one word, like, look, we have fun with it. The baddies, I love it. Pete, Julie, seeing people at conferences, it's like a big family now, right? You go
Yeah.
to the payroll org, you go to Success Connect, the conference. It's like, yeah, I'm hanging out with my friends, and then of
Yeah.
course, like I have a lot of respect for the profession as well, right? And so I started it, and I always liked it because I also was a numbers person. It either reconciles or it doesn't. It was very black and white. And when I did that actual work, I enjoyed the problem solving of making it work, figuring out what's going on, and reconciling it. The dork in
Yeah.
me liked that part, but the
I'm
community
laughing
ran.
I'm laughing at how that dork in you first started on the HR side of the house of payroll implementations, because
Yeah.
that's just got to be a brain twister right there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
I can tell you, HR wasn't hard enough for him, and
Yeah,
so
yeah.
he needed.
Payroll.
Yeah, their problems weren't real problems, and so and Imran's a real problem solver, so,
Yeah.
like, that's 100%. Also, Imran, you're selling yourself a little bit short. He produces a ton of content on
Yeah.
YouTube and
Books.
on other streaming platforms, and, like, millions of people are consuming his content because what he does is he shows the problem, and then and then he videotapes kind of fixing the problem,
Yeah.
or it's not always problems, it's sometimes opportunities, and he'll build this new way of doing something, and so other people can do it without going to
Yeah.
consultants and starting a project and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Pretty cool stuff.
It's like
It is,
fixes
man.
for dummies. Imran's fixes for dummies.
It is.
Yeah.
I love your videos, Imran. I know you do a lot of product videos and that sort of thing, how to use things and how to get the most out of them. So I appreciate them. I watch them. I'm sure the users who are using the software watch them. But one of the things I have to commend you on that I think you have a very differentiated offering of as a person is you've walked a mile in the shoes of a payroll person in a lot of ways and seen this from the realities and the inside and then became a marketer. You're not just someone who's like talking about these because there's so much of that going on right now, and that's okay that we have people from the outside. We need that, but I think it's rare to find people who have walked a mile in this world and then is out there actually building it or selling it or marketing it. So I really love that, man.
Yeah.
Appreciate you
Appreciate
doing
that.
that. I
Thanks.
appreciate both of you guys, man. So look, I want to talk about we got to talk about the bodies, the baddies a little bit, the payroll baddies. Tell us about that, man. Because I don't know if everybody's familiar. I love you guys. I think you got you got the best swag and the best marketing in all of podcasting. Unapologetically SAP. I'll give you that. But what? Tell me about the show, man. Share it with everybody who doesn't know. And you are work defined, right, on our network.
So, it was born in Lisbon, Portugal, at a conference where we're there with the entire ERP environment, and then specialized HCM environment, and within that is the payroll environment. And look, we wanted to stand out and make a statement about payroll as a
Yeah,
function, payroll and time as a function, and then it quickly morphed into this movement around lifting up payroll and time people, right, within an organization. Because we're sitting around late night on Pink Street, and if you know, and talking about this, and we all had stories of the people that we get to work with on a daily basis at our customers, and how they solve some of the most amazingly complex problems, and nobody ever really shouts them out. And
yeah,
like, what if we just shouted out these heroes on a daily basis as a thing that our group does? And
yeah,
because we all understand the complexity of the problem very well. We live it every day, and some of us like multiple versions of it every day because I'm in like 5 different customers. So that's kind of what it's morphed into, is this celebration of the payroll profession
yeah,
and the payroll process, and the brand that payroll has in an organization. We're not super focused on, like a chair at the table and all that stuff. I mean, that's like, it's almost like the mind's turned off to that stuff. We've heard it so often.
yeah,
Just more about the business understanding how important that data is, and how you can drive real business results from that data. And then through the thought process, like, we have to
yeah,
lift up the people that manage that data, right?
yeah.
So,
I agree.
I think that's what it's morphed into. It's a movement about lifting up the payroll people. It's very, ours is obviously SAP focused, but and we have a 12,000 global customers. Some of the world's largest companies. So we touch a lot of areas around the world and a lot of people.
Yeah,
But really, it's a payroll. It's lifting up payroll people.
And all sorts of payroll people. So like one of the ones we've done recently is, who no in the same type of fashion, no one shouts out payroll engineers that are building it, right? And
right.
Todd always has this saying. He's like, if you're working on a project like with payroll, if you get everything right, 100% correct, you get a C. Then if you get one thing wrong, it's an F, right?
Yeah,
And you get
pass or
yelled
fail.
at by someone. But I
Yeah,
want to take that a little further, Todd. This whole thing, it's a group project, and it's also your responsibility being in payroll to make sure HR, benefits, finance, and even individual managers or employees themselves don't screw something up. Because if anyone in the group screws something up, you in payroll get that F that wasn't your fault, right? And so that's one of the reasons why we're like, hey, we need to give people that work in this industry, not
Yeah.
exclusively. I mean, a lot of it is payroll admins that are in there in the trenches, but
Yeah.
engineers, the people working around payroll, the practitioners on the IT side, right? So
Yeah.
one of the stories we had in our podcast was, a company, 130,000 people. Remember that hack a few years ago of the time system?
Yeah.
130,000 people. Of that, a significant portion being hourly workers. In December, their time system goes down.
Yeah.
And so
Wow.
what do you do from an HR IT standpoint, right? A payroll IT, you suddenly don't have a time system. How are you going to pay your people? How are you going to get W-2s out, right? So that was one of the
Mhm.
stories that we had in our episode. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's payroll IT, payroll engineers. We're celebrating the professions, and that's what it's all about. So
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, and we need it, man. We need it. We just need awareness. I think to Todd's point, man, all payroll leaders are asking for is understand what we do and the impact of what it means. Come have a conversation with us and give us an opportunity, right? Give us an opportunity to have a voice. They're not asking for more than I think is reasonable. And I think that when you think about the athletes that they are, in the way that they're having to compensate for the lack of innovation and things that they've had and support and engagement, like they're really pulling off a miracle job with we
100%.
joke about it being magic, but it kind of comes
Yeah.
off as magic because they're having to pull the rabbit out of the hat. And that's just unfortunate when you think about the danger that companies are putting themselves in that way.
Yeah,
So
that's the touch point, right? That's the
yeah,
buck stops here. No
yeah,
matter
Exactly. Like
where
yeah,
it came from, it's right there.
I mentioned, it's a group project. So that means, like, if a manager doesn't approve their employee's time, guess what? The pay is short. Do they go yell at their manager?
no,
Yeah, they're not yelling at the
payroll.
manager, right? Or
Yeah,
if HR enters something like the bonus in the wrong amount, payroll just received the bonus. If it's
yeah,
$500 and it's supposed to be 1,000, who they gonna yell at? They're gonna say, "Hey, my
right.
bonus was supposed to be $1,000." And payroll gets yelled at of like, "Well,
Yep.
yeah, I just received the file with $500 on it." Right?
Yeah. Well, in my 5 pillars, I talk about the modern pay experience, and
You
I
do.
tell them payroll leaders and everyone, I say, listen, this is not payroll's responsibility. It's payroll and pay are not the same thing. Payroll is just the vehicle. They're going to make sure it's there, timely, accurate, whatever. But they can only do what based on what you've given them to work with, and that's data and
Yeah.
inputs and systems, right? So
You guys will like this.
yeah,
I was on the phone on Wednesday with one of our like the I don't know world top 3 maybe retailers, right?
yeah,
Maybe it was
yeah.
number
You
1.
talk to some big companies, man.
Well, this guy was telling me something really I thought was interesting, that they used to call their payroll processors, of which they have 700
Oh
ish
wow,
in the payroll department, like
that's a problem. Yeah,
distributed around the world. Well, it's just this very large,
big operation. Okay,
like 2 comma operation. And and they called them payroll processors. They just changed their title to data steward. This was in conversation, it was kind of rolling, but I came back around to it. I'm like, so what does data steward mean? Like I know what I think what it means. He says it gives them the right to go back upstream into
yeah,
into the contributing systems and to ask all the questions they need to get the accurate results at the GL level, right? So
wow,
so
yeah,
that is he says, and you're a payroll processor calls and you're saying I'm processing payroll and this, I got other things to do. But when you're a data steward and you're responsible for that accuracy
changes the
and the data
perception.
quality coming down,
Yeah,
yeah. And I thought that was brilliant. I
Hey,
it
mean,
is
Todd,
that's
here's
brilliant.
here's
exactly
a question for you though. Where did their data stewards report? Was payroll basically owned by HR, by finance, by
this is
operations?
in the finance
Finance
organization.
owned, yeah.
Yeah, makes
And then
sense.
with heavy influence from CIO, right?
Sure.
So
Yeah.
so they're sharing the governance a little bit.
We were
Yeah.
we were just talking this the other day. I can't remember who I was talking about this with. I apologize if I'm not shouting you out, but we were talking about the other day. Is there a future in payroll maybe reporting to the chief of risk,
Yeah.
chief information, chief risk
A global
officer, right?
payroll for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, right. I mean, there's a lot of angles here, but look, all I say is call payroll whatever you want. We call them, right? Just don't leave them in the dark. Treat them as if they're an advisor and bring them to the table and get their advice, get their help, and let's get them in motion. So
Or
yeah,
just don't call them after the shit hits the fan all the time.
yeah,
Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, right,
Yeah.
yeah,
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 you talk about this too, Julie. I mean, like,
yeah,
people don't think about calling payroll, during or pre mergers and acquisitions,
yeah,
and then sometimes that ends up screwing them, right? Like, I'm literally a couple months ago in an RFP with a client, and they're like, "Listen, this payroll technology, it has to be able to close an M&A within X window,
Yeah.
right? Because
Yeah.
why that requirement was there? Because someone didn't consult payroll probably ahead of time, or the technology couldn't support it. Whatever the reason, it messed up an M&A potential
Yeah.
organization. Now
Oh, it'll
think about
stop
the
it from
business
closing.
cost of that, just because someone didn't loop them in
Yeah.
and they couldn't make it happen, right?
And it's
Yeah.
literally the last thing anyone's thinking of when they think about mergers and
It
acquisitions. They're not thinking payroll. They're thinking about all these other things. And that's a massive integration opportunity that has to go right.
But when you
Yeah.
bring that up, they're like, "Oh, that's not happened before." Like it's almost like it has to be a fresh wound that you could
Yeah.
poke your finger into, right? To make it
Some
stick.
lessons are only learned through experience, right?
That's right.
'Cause, you can,
Painful experiences.
Rub
Yeah.
dirt
I
on
Yeah.
can
it.
explain it to you, but I can't make you understand.
Yeah. No, I love it. Those are the things that payroll needs to be doing in the future, right? Managing and supporting those projects. And I think that's where AI is gonna be able to help. But look, Todd, I want to start with you and Imran as well. What are you guys seeing, man? What's the pulse from your lens on payroll right now, particularly with the C-suite, right? You got bigger companies that you guys are working with. What's kind of the lens on payroll right now? What's the tone? And are we making progress? Are we still, not making progress? What's going on out there?
Well, I think we're making progress for sure, but I think the complexity continues to iterate at a faster pace than the
Yes.
progress that we're making,
Yeah.
right? So, like, just as we think we've kind of reached homeostasis or a kind of a stable place, then the change happens more. Like there's another big disruption. I'll give you an example. Like I'm seeing organizations move away from payroll consolidation
Hmm.
from a global perspective to orchestration. And I
Yes.
think that's a huge difference when you look at what the projects look like. Consolidations trying to get everything into one process, and the countries that are out there that we're doing business in, our customers are doing business in, are changing just too quickly. EOR regulations and all these other, remote work from COVID. There's still kind of a hangover there with more,
Yeah.
like the legislation's finally catching up to where we were in 2021 and 22. And so this idea of like it could all be normalized and jammed into one thing is not the goal anymore. And now it's
Yeah.
more just at an orchestration level, like what data can we normalize from all of these different payroll processes that make sense,
Yeah.
that helps us run the business, and then you let everything south of that stay in country.
Local.
ICP. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I think one of the things that created that, not just the country's disruption by creating more complexity, but also people were struggling with, okay, now we've gone through this big process where we have all this normalized data. What are we going to use it for? Like we were solving, in some cases, we were solving problems that where there wasn't really a problem, right? So,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
now they're saying, okay, look, these are the problems. We need normalized data to solve these problems. Everything else can stay
Yeah.
localized,
The
right?
execution being local, the data and the control being central is what you're saying.
Right. And
Yeah.
so that gives us all the compliance agility that we need that's delivered, through an ICP. But we can abstract, like business running level information, strategic information that helps us, like, do we create a third shift in Slovenia, or do we go to,
Right.
and then we're using AI for that, right?
Right.
You saw that we had a new partnership with GP that gives us access to GIA, their AI
Yeah.
capability, that
It's legit. Legit.
in conjunction with Burson, right? So we have like these two
Yeah.
pieces of content coming
Galileo.
together to help our customers. Yeah, to help
Yeah.
customers make decisions on where to build the next plant, right? I mean, so
Yeah.
billion-dollar decisions that are heavily payroll influenced. We're seeing that come in as a big contributor.
Interesting. Interesting. Imran, yeah, what are you seeing, man?
Yeah, one of the things I'm seeing and having a lot more conversations about, and it kind of ties into this whole conversation we have about like almost payroll not being looped into stuff, or having the right influence. I
Yeah.
I'm a big believer is, if possible for your business, you don't want to separate your HR tech stack from your payroll tech stack. I think it causes a lot of problems. The happiest clients I see are those that have HR, time, and payroll together, right?
Yep.
Because everything
Unified.
just flows a lot
Yeah.
better. And I'm not even saying, necessarily who the vendor might be, but the problem I see is that people are making sometimes an HR buying decision without even the consulting payroll, right?
Oh,
And then
yeah. Yeah.
the
Or
problem
vice
is
versa.
then payroll gets kind of left out in the side. And now when they want to or need to make a decision, they're only left with one or two options, especially if that particular
Yeah.
vendor's payroll doesn't fit. Now they're having to kind of solve for that outside of it. Whereas if you would have just considered that at the point of buying the HR system, whatever that
Agreed.
might be, right? Like look at them together and at least have that discussion of, hey, what is our integration going to look like? Because the value that you'll get will always be greater if those
Yeah.
things are combined, right? And if
Right.
you can add time plus another 10, right?
Right.
Right. Because I mean, that's the heavy lift for most payrolls is
Yeah.
all of that build to gross, source to gross, you know?
It is,
Yeah.
it is, and then it also helps with the whole AI thing, right? Because now if you're getting into AI and AI agents and, those type of things, then that's where a lot more of the value will come from, right? The
Yeah.
same, of course, there will be these partnerships that Todd just touched on where, hey, I can call Galileo or Gia, but like that assumes that, you're kind of planning with the end in mind, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
hey, if I know that this one interacts with a different platform and I can do this, then cool. Let me then, put those two things together. Whereas
Yeah.
otherwise, you get this disjointed employee experience where, I have one chatbot for this type of thing, but then I have a different chatbot for this type of thing, and then they're in different places, and I don't know where to look. And guess what?
Agreed.
That ends up being more tickets for the both sides, right? HR gets
Yep.
more tickets,
Yeah.
payroll gets more tickets, and so you just end up with this. As much as we want to talk about AI agents and all these things, another thing I'll mention is, like I think vendors are talking a lot about that. Customers are intrigued by it, and
Yeah.
they're like, "Oh, that sounds interesting," but I need to get the blocking and tackling right first.
Yeah. The
Yeah. Yeah.
foundation.
The
Yeah. Yeah.
foundation has to be right first, right?
Imran, I'm interested to know, like a net new buyer or an ideal buyer, right, would put those things together functionally, all the core stuff.
Yep.
How are you seeing folks, especially in the SAP world, are some of their investment in upgrades kind of following some of that logic? So there's options, right? There's success, there's ECP. When you talk payroll, there's ECP, there's S/4HANA, there's private cloud. Like how are you seeing, some of those trends influence what SAP clients are doing to move to the future next
Yeah.
level platform?
We see both. You're well versed in it, Julie. So I
Yeah.
appreciate your wisdom there, and clearly you're having some of these conversations. So thank you for that. But we see both. I think what we try to do, right? Todd and I did this a lot, is be a little more consultative, right? Because yes, there are a number of options, but you can boil it down to, all right, tell me what type of service do you want? Do you want to run payroll? Do you want to keep running payroll? Yes or no. And then depending on what they
Right.
say, okay, do you want to own this data? Do you want this? Do you and then if you ask a few questions, then you can give them the solution of like this is what's, what I
Yeah.
recommend for you. Yes, we do have these other options. And if you want to know more about them, I can explain about them. But we try to be consultative and recommend, hey, ECP makes sense for you. You're net new, you're live on Employee Central already. This is absolutely clearly the choice for you. And it doesn't even make sense to go look or talk about some of those other things. Whereas
Right.
others, will
Yeah.
probably have a
Yeah.
deeper conversation, right? So if you're a long time SAP customer that's been doing it for 20 years, then they obviously know a bunch of things and they're hearing things and they're talking to people in the ecosystem. Those conversations are definitely more technical and tell me about option one, two, and three, and let me
Yeah.
get a
Right.
comparison chart. But I think I try to be consultative as much as
Yeah,
Yeah.
possible.
sure. There's some choices that just there's too much nuance around to really boil it down, boil the ocean down, right, to
Yeah.
something
Yeah.
Oh,
digestible.
there is. Somebody asked me the other day for a one pager, and I literally laughed at him. And the customer is a huge pharmaceutical customer in Europe, and I'm like, Give me a one pager on your customer," and they laughed back at I said, "So
Yeah.
this is the problem, right? I mean, they're
Yeah.
operating in
Yeah.
68 countries. They have this, that, and the other." But I'll tell you, Sean Price, may he rest in peace, one of our old leaders, said it best. He said, "When it comes to payroll, we are an embarrassment of riches." But I was like, all right, I'll
Yeah.
take that.
Huh, yeah.
That's a good thing to be embarrassed about, I guess.
Yeah.
But that also creates that, the complexity around what do I do now, right?
Yeah.
Or what
Yeah.
do I do next, right? And as they're chasing the AI craze, which option gives me that capability, and which option
Right.
allows me to roll as much of my current configuration into the new option as possible with this, least amount of effort. And all these things need to be weighed together, in addition to the fact that I'm operating in all these countries with, like diverse regional service delivery and,
Yeah.
like all the different things, right? So it's fun. It's continued employment for guys like Imran and people like you and Pete, but
Yeah.
because there's a lot of questions to answer. I think Sean Price's idea was we always have the answer. We
Yeah.
can
We
help a
should.
customer get to the answer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, I want to push on this because Imran, that tracks, right? The having the all-in-one creates a lot more value, all that integration unified. That tracks to what we see in the PPCI, right? It was a gap. Integration was a gap for most payrolls. I think it was like only 40% said they were well integrated. But like one of the things, Todd, that I think is interesting, we just did a podcast this week that'll come out, I think, before this one with Bonnie Tender from Raven, talking ERP. And what I think is very interesting is down market, the all-in-one is like the darling right now, right? Up market, we're hearing some vendors are saying, and some futurists are saying, ERP and SaaS are just dead. Meanwhile, you guys at SAP have gone pretty far over into the ERP side. Right now, you're much more, obviously you should be going to market as an ERP, but you're seeing that adoption, right, of ERP, even Workday's kind of talking intelligent ERP, next gen. Is ERP dead? Are people, what's the story there, man? Because I think there's some media saying it, but then you don't see that in the macro, like, adoption that's going on.
No, first of all, Bonnie's Payroll Baddie nickname is Be Rave. I love it. I love it.
Yeah, all right. Shout out Bonnie
Be
Tender.
Rave. Shout out to Be Rave.
Be Rave.
But listen, so first they started saying ERP was dead, I think right around
SaaS is
2001.
dead.
2001. Well, that was when SaaS was born, right?
Oh, okay.
And that was going to kill ERP.
Yeah.
That was the last disruption, right? 2000, 2001, the .com boom. I was in the middle of the mix, so I remember ERP is dead. And here we are again. ERP is dead. We have customers that are asking about whether our code line is going to work in 2050. So and these are companies that make 100 billion plus. Not every, and we have customers that make 100 million and are asking, like they don't ask the question like that, but they, what's the expiration of this implementation, right? And so they're looking at this as a long-term game, but with the agility to be able to move and take advantage of the short-term disruptions, right?
Yeah.
So they're looking for a platform of innovation, and that sounds like something right out of the marketing catalog, but that's what it is. And in 2013, 14, 15, we called it platform as a service and extensibility. And one of our big competitors in the space, you guys probably have heard of them, said power of one.
Yeah.
There's no need for that. That just means that your product has gaps. We're the end all be all.
Yep.
And now 15 acquisitions later and platform as a service, like they're the
platform
chameleon.
of apps.
They are the marketing chameleon, and congrats to them. But we saw this coming a long, long time ago. That's why our ecosystem is as big as it is.
Yeah.
We cannot be all things to all people. And it's just that that extensibility will keep ERP alive forever.
I agree.
Oh, well, forever.
Yeah.
Forever's relative in tech.
Yeah, look, you got to have that launch pad for your agents, your data, all that flow. There's got to be that central command center, that life sensor that is doing everything else at the edge. And I think that's I don't see how. I think that's why you see everyone kind of going this way, because you've got to get your data in order to be able to do any of this stuff.
I think similar voices had been shouting, "Oh, HR is dead." Like agents are coming in. Why do you even need HR? But as far as we're used to hearing payroll be the hot potato, right? Like, oh God, who wants to have payroll? Nobody is saying payroll is dead.
It'll never die. It'll never die. You're always going to have to pay people, right? You're always going to have to pay taxes.
They might not like what we call it. They might want it to be always on, instantaneous, gratifying, whatever. But it ain't dying anytime soon.
I'm going to take a different approach to that question, right? And so I think, technologically, we probably are getting to a point where you can do some incredible things with AI, right? I'm an AI enthusiast, right? I play with N8N. I build automations. I built calculators. I even do some vibe coding. So I'm in there.
Nice.
I'm in the trenches doing some of this stuff. And so I'm bullish on, could it replace some of these things for certain types of companies? Yes. But here's where I kind of draw the line, right? we know Europe has a lot of data privacy requirements and requirements for data protection and things like that. One, with LLMs, a lot of people do not have that figured out, right? And
Yep.
so I think that's a problem. Two, you look at these big organizations, which we obviously work with a lot. How many of them will be comfortable just taking their data and putting it into an unstructured LLM, even if it's capable of housing it, having it completely unstructured? And you know what? It might even be capable of giving you the data you need, but to not be able to have that human being able to go and look at the source and have it organized and, even if the LLM could theoretically give you a CSV exactly what you want, how many organizations did you know? Pete, I know you worked at Disney, you
Yeah.
worked at a lot of these others. Julie, I know you work with, a ton of brands. How many of them will be comfortable just having a layer of an LLM with unstructured data and just feeding that
Yeah.
into the beast?
Yeah, and isn't that
No.
part of what holds us back from that like truly revolutionizing, capability in AI? Because if you have to go ahead and try to create the structure all the time to use it, you're losing a lot of really the power that AI is going to bring to stuff. So it's a self-limiting, limiting issue out there,
Yeah.
but
Yep.
it's a
Governments,
concern,
right?
right?
Governments. I mean, even from a payroll technology standpoint, a lot of the limitations. Pete, I know you were studying daily pay and the
Yeah. Earned
EWA
wage
EWA,
a
access.
yeah.
long time
Yeah.
ago. Julie, I know you've been written about it a lot too, right? Look at those. A lot of the holdups for those are not because of the technology, it's because of the legislation of governments, right? You have
Mm,
to have this way.
true.
Like the US tax code doesn't have tax paper
Yeah.
for, paying me every whatever, right? And so then there's a lot of, uncertainty from that standpoint. And you could say the same thing, especially about payroll data and having it and
Yeah.
feeding it into like a lot of local entities to this day won't even let you upload a file via an API, right?
Yeah.
So now we're going to be talking about MCP servers and things like that to these bodies, right? Like,
Right.
you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Just to put a cap on it, we're
Yeah.
getting back to what we were talking about in the 1990s, which was master data management,
Yeah.
right? That
Right.
that governance is the thinnest part of the pipe, and it's going to inhibit a lot of the things that we would love to see, but
yeah,
it doesn't move as fast.
that are
Yeah.
technologically possible,
Yeah.
but the question is, are you legally allowed to do it that way? And should you do it that way, even if you can do it that way? So to
And
Great
isn't
me,
point. Yeah.
yeah,
Isn't that what leads a lot of other folks who are focusing more on the connectivity of data to say, yeah, okay, it's not the secret sauce of putting it all in one place so that you can act against it. It's about, just creating the highways and interconnectivity that make it all seamless, whether it is or not, right? And so
Yeah.
there are two kind of completely different
absolutely.
approaches to getting to that uber flexibility that everybody's looking
Uh,
for in
yeah.
data.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I know you
Yeah.
had the episode with Jerome from Data Scale
Yeah.
HR, right? So
Yeah.
we partner with
He's
them.
awesome.
I listened to that entire episode, right? And his point of view
Incredible
on things.
solution.
And
Yeah.
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
he nailed it, right? When he was
Yeah.
talking about these things, like he really, really nailed it. And so Julie, like
Yeah.
I think you pulled that out perfectly.
Yeah, yeah. And
Yeah.
there's folks doing similar things, but in benefits or in, like everybody's just like industry focus, kind of functional focus.
Yeah.
Someday we'll get it and it'll be broadly,
Yep.
kind of a
Yep.
broad concept.
So just sticking on the AI subject, I mean, I was talking this yesterday with another analyst and a vendor, and Julie and I have talked about it a lot. Like, look, payroll's never been like the first stop for innovation. Nobody goes to payroll and goes, hey, go buy payroll 17, like the iPhone. You know what I mean? No one's going to come to payroll. Not one company is going to come to payroll and go, hey, here's a bundle of money. Go do some AI. It's going to find its way to them. And likely it's going to come by way of a commercial investment like an SAP, a UKG, whatever, right? Name any of your platforms now. So like, what's the state of things, man? Because I'm not seeing a ton of folks that have it. I mean, I am, but it's very sporadic. How are we going to get this in their hands? How are we going to get them to trust it? Like, Todd, what are you seeing, man? Are they digesting it, like in payroll specifically yet? It's been slow. I just feel like from my perspective.
Yeah, the first phase was what Imran suggested about like a cohesive back office, right?
Mhm.
Like kind of a modern data model, unity in the back office, right? And that's the foundation of AI. For doesn't matter what you're doing, it's a lot easier to do it with normalized data than data from multiple sources in multiple contexts, right?
Yeah.
Because context doesn't flow with it and all that other stuff. So that's kind of first phase, and I think that operationally, we're getting into that phase now. But we're not talking about it. The customers are actually starting to do it. The next phase is, what's the problem that we're trying to solve, right? So instead of everything looks like a nail if you have a hammer in your hand, right?
Right.
So the biggest problem, the highest cost we see, and there's others, but really this is talking to our customers, and they're saying service delivery cost is something that if we can fix or reduce it significantly, that'll pay for the entire investment and then give
Yes.
us back a return within the first year.
A self-funding project.
Here we go.
Oh,
the
Yeah,
boy.
Holy
we're not. It's
Grail.
like
I love it.
in year one, what?
Yeah.
Right. So, and I remember I worked on a deal with a U.S. retailer that sells really nice shoes and menswear and women's wear out of Seattle. That project paid itself off in 5 months, and it
Wow.
was a project where they cataloged all of the company data and then put it into a tool that would recognize in natural language the employee when they had a question. It would answer the question. It would take a summary plan description of a benefit, from a benefit, their major medical, and translate it into chunks at the 7th grade reading level, and then send that out to the customer, their employee, right? And that paid for itself in 5 months. And
Wow.
we're seeing that level of return on investment possibility with Explain My Pay, for instance, which is that functionality that basically, 24-hour access to all
Yeah.
of the payroll results and all the policy that created those results from an employee perspective. And I think, I don't know.
Yeah.
There's one question that comes up, or example is a woman who gets off a second shift on a Friday and it's 11 o'clock at night. And she noticed, she got her pay stub and notices that there's no benefits deduction. And she's freaked out because her husband has tests on Saturday and
my.
Sunday and
Yeah.
Monday. And so she has nobody to call. Payroll's closed. But she goes into Joule and types in, what happened to my medical deduction? Do I still have medical? And Joule 1 second later responds, this is one of the 2 pay periods a year where it's the 3rd pay period in a month. We only take your benefits out of the first 2 pay periods, and every other month there's only 2 pay periods, so you don't notice this. But in this month and this other month, you will see a 0 deduction on your dental. Don't worry, you still have benefits and everything's fine.
Nice.
Right. So like that, keeping that L1 that may turn into an L2, or I've hit a limit, or why did my pay rate change, or why did my net change, or any of those things that turn into these, L2 level payroll, because we have to find what country it's in and what are the policies there, and how that works with a shared service delivery environment.
Yep.
If we can fix that problem, we're in the 5-month category.
Yeah. I love
right?
that. You know what I want to see? I want to see some of these, I don't want to call them chatbots because they're more than chatbots, but I want to see some of these assistants and agentics actually using the calc engine to help employees model pay. Hey, I want to change my benefit 401k, whatever. Hey, I'm taking a day off. What am I kind of looking at for my paycheck? Like just something to give them that modeling would be very, 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 very beneficial. I don't think that's out there just yet. So.
I'm interested, like we started with the data foundation, right? Like getting your data in order and bringing it all together. But I do think that most adoption in AI is going to come first and fast by using it as an embedded portion of your product, right? And so
I think so.
And trying to get the data foundation that jives with, external data or multiple sources, that's just a hornet's nest for everybody. So I feel like any product, SAP or whatever the core product is, to the extent you can roll out AI in an insular to the data in that product, that is the key. And I'm working on developing some AI sessions for conferences. And different folks will ask me to do one for them. And it's the very first question is, where do I touch it and find it and open it?
Yeah.
yeah.
And it's nowhere. Like, this is the dumbest question, but it's like, I see these Copilot little thingies all over the place. I see how the hell do I get to it in your product so I can just open it up and use it?
Yeah.
Is this first question.
You couldn't have set me up better, Julie, right? Because that was literally the talk track I was doing. I was like, look, I think we all know this. Payroll is the most sensitive data in the organization, right? You have all of the information for an employee. And we also know that LLMs are subject to hallucinate, right? And so now imagine Todd's scenario where the LLM hallucinates and says, yeah, your benefits, ended on whatever, right? And now it sends this poor woman into a panic on that Friday, falsely, right? Where benefits deduction were actually paid. So I think that's where you have to have a higher level of scrutiny for the AI use cases that you roll out for
Yep.
payroll. And I think the best value you can get is to do it with whatever vendor you're working with. You should do it within there, because to me it's always scary to extract the payroll data, put it into some other system, and then you have to figure out what LLM
Yeah.
they're
Yeah.
using. Also, protect the data to make sure it's not going back into the model, right? And so
Right.
I think
And
this is
now you've
something
got IT and governance, like
you do.
you just frenzied the whole entire
Yeah.
organization before you even tried
And
anything.
look, we've done a number of enhancements to actually proof of concepts of doing it, right? And some of it is cool, and some of them might be perfectly viable, right? So there are use cases where you might want to extract the payroll data. I'll give you an example for global payroll reporting. For example, you can extract the data, put it into an analytics tool of your choice, whether it's SAP Analytics Cloud, Power BI, Amazon QuickSight, Google has their own, right? And the cool thing about that is if you do have the data in there and you're confident Microsoft will protect your data, you can use their LLMs to also do some things there as well, right? So you can have the data and then ask questions about your payroll data. But even with that, I'll tell you, there's a high bar, which is appropriate, that people are asking a lot of questions. That, what about the data transfer and how is that? And so I think you should be very careful. The advice I give is whatever vendor you're starting with, roll out some of the functionality that they're doing, right?
That's right. That's
I
right.
mean,
Insular to the data that's
exactly.
there in your tool.
I think that kind of completes the circle because
Yeah.
the last piece of data I saw said 70% of payroll errors are a result of data quality in the upstream
Oh,
system.
sure.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the more of those systems that you have from the vendor that also has that grown in AI capability, then the more of those 70% that you can mitigate or that you can head off. So I think
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think that's what we're saying to
Yeah.
customers about this. Like, look, have one vendor in the back office as much as you can, and then AI can work on more of that data. Because the problem with extracting it to a third place is contextuality or
Yeah.
contextual.
Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
that right? Is that
Context.
a word?
Yeah.
Context.
Context.
Context. Yeah,
Yeah.
context. I'm thrown off by
We can
Imran's
create
big
words
Atlanta.
today, can't we?
Yeah,
Don't we have that
Imran's
authority?
big Atlanta thing is
Hey,
kind of just.
you're allowed to hallucinate on here too if you want, man. It's fine.
It's Friday afternoon.
Yeah.
I'm always listening.
More
Hey,
than a
Yeah.
little.
I want to ask you this, and this is a good question I think for all of us, or for Julie and for you guys, is what are you seeing when it comes to the pricing of this? I mean, there's a lot of vendors are kind of trying to still figure it out. There's a lot of, I think the expectation right now is that it's going to need to just come along with what you're buying, right? In module pricing. I don't know that there's an appetite to pay for things that you don't know if you're even trust yet, or if how you're even going
Or how
to
you use 'em.
rationalize using it.
Yeah.
So, like, what's the tone, and where do you think this is heading in terms of the pricing for AI?
Yeah, no, I mean, look, I think the way SAP is doing, and look, SAP has had multiple iterations, as
Yeah.
probably everyone has, as you kind of figure these things out. Because look, we all know that there's a cost component behind these queries
Hmm.
that you're running, right? Because you're
Yeah.
running an LLM, those charges add up. So, vendors don't do things for free. None of them do. And they look to make a profit. And so I think you always have to look at an ROI use case, right? And so I can speak to SAP. One thing they do is they have a free Joule offering, and that does have one payroll use case that's actually included. And
Yeah.
so it's not the full. I can ask about my pay statement and have that, but it's like, someone does an organization, or like people don't view their pay all the time. It can navigate them to their pay, or it can do things like request time off for them. So there is a value that you have in that. So what I'd recommend to those clients is, let's turn on the free version of it, and then let's build a business case to figure out what the cost is for the premium AI units, which is
Yeah.
usually, I would venture to guess, for most companies, is going to be somewhat consumption based or user based costs associated with that. And so, like, I think Ask My Pay is probably a good use case, right?
Yeah.
SAP did some internal research on that, but if you really are focused on building a business case, you could be very scientific about it. You could say, okay, last year, open up your CRM. How many payroll tickets did you get? And then if you had the ability to report on that, you could look and say, okay, what were the causes of this? And then you
Hmm.
could come and figure out, okay, what is the average number of hours that we spend on these tickets? And then, okay, what's the average cost of one of our payroll admins? And you could take that hourly rate of them. You could look at the hours they spend and at least come up with an internal cost of, hey, this is the time
Yeah.
and effort we're spending answering tickets. And this tool will reduce that by X percentage. Then, okay, it might make sense for us to pay this amount because now we won't have to have nearly as many tickets. And so
Yeah.
I think you can rationalize it from an ROI standpoint, but I would probably do it in that order. Turn on the free
Yeah.
stuff, get used to it, get used to the change management of people using an AI agent, maybe look and see, are you getting adoption on that? And then, turn on some of the premium use cases that you have.
I know my client side role is just going to make me, a little bit of the contrarian in the group, but there's a part of me that says, that ongoing subscription fee that users pay, includes innovation. It's meant to include innovation, and especially many times they're subject to COLAs and other things. So if you're not driving that innovation into that core subscription rate and you're trying to take it out on the AI side, like I just see a world where either it's in some way free or there's a balancing act to be done with subscription, all the different commercials, right? In
Yeah.
order to make
Sure.
sure that innovation is still what people are tapping into when they go down the road of having their strategic platform and partners, right?
Yeah.
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 Maybe that'll be part of our predictions stuff, Pete. Maybe I'll
Yeah.
wedge that one in there somewhere.
All right.
Julie, I agree.
Perfect.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm really happy that I'm not part of this discussion internally, because I don't
It's
know how
hard.
we're going to, it is,
Yeah.
it reminds me of early days e-com when you would
Yeah.
go, instead of going out to the store to buy your Christmas, you're ordering online, and they went through every kind of scheme. Now this happened over a long period of time.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
And instead AI is happening, these arguments are going on every day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's, wholesale change in a lot of different policies, different companies.
Right.
And so we have not reached anywhere near what we will be in a year from now.
Yeah,
Right.
agreed. Interesting. Interesting. Guys, I could keep going on with you guys forever, man. I love it. But I wanna leave on this, man. Anything that has you really excited on the roadmap as far as time and payroll? Are we getting more time and payroll sold together? And what any sneak peeks that we can expect to see coming out of SuccessFactors and SAP around the payroll time use cases?
So I think this is cool. So when we turn on like Ask by Pay Statement, SAP is
Yeah.
continuing to enhance that as well. So I think first half next year, they're also going to have the ability for like more of that time data to come in and ask more questions about that for that hourly population and analyze some of those. And then at Success Connect, they also announced more about like a payroll agent. And now we're probably going to get into admin use cases where, because right now what the use case we've talked about is an employee, like the example Todd gave of the woman on Friday night or Saturday morning or whatever it was doing it. But now how do we help the admins that are responsible for payroll? And we've done
Yeah.
some work there as proof of concept, but you could ask um, uh, maybe an AI chatbot to help investigate variances for you and pinpoint exactly those. So I'm not doing it for my own pay, but I'm saying, hey, tell me anyone that has this variation. So the tools
Yeah.
already allow for that, but you have to go into the UI and you have to drill down into it. Whereas now, if you can surface some of those things and simplify it, I think that's always another area of benefit for the admins.
Yeah.
Let's be honest, I don't know if all the admins want it, right? They still love their Excels and they're like, nope,
Oh yeah.
nope, just give me the Excel. I know what the hell I'm doing. And
Yeah.
Yep.
I
Yep.
And
will
control.
determine what that very
I think there's going to be a lot of this oversight for a while by the payroll HR folks, because you're going to have that trust that, like, man, this is accurate, because
yeah.
it's a ripple effect, right? It creates a domino of problems for the company, for the employees, for whatever, if you get one thing out of place. So
And
yeah.
look, with these tools, like the old SAP CEO, Bill McDermott used to always say it, right? Trust is earned in drops,
Yep.
lost in buckets. So
Oh
that
yeah.
means like, okay, every query I do for the AI, if it's right, I'm getting a drop, a drop, a drop, a drop. And then I might build up enough where I trust it. But if that AI then screws something up and I no
Right.
longer trust it, that bucket just got dumped over and now my trust is at zero again, right? And so,
Yeah.
that's the reality of it. And so that's why it has to be grounded in reality.
Oh
You
yeah.
can't have a hallucination of it. And so
No pun
yeah,
intended,
Yeah. Yeah.
or pun intended, as it
Pun
were.
intended.
Yeah.
Totally.
I I would just add, like, from a little, maybe a higher level or go to market level,
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm looking to see, and over some years of getting here and some iterations that I probably wouldn't have answered the question this way in years past. I'll say that we're getting much better at selling payroll and time to the financial buyer.
Nice.
And that's something that goes back to our roots. But when the cloud disruption happened, we kind of disconnected from it. When the best of breed kind of acquisitions by the company, many years ago, we kind of said, now we're coming back together. So where we were selling to CIO, CFO before, we're doing that much better now cohesively.
Nice. Yeah.
The other thing I think that we have talked about over the years, but now are doing much better, is approaching the mid-market with something that's palatable to them, an all-in-one service, but uniquely an organic development for a product for that mid-market, right? So it's not, I'm not taking my enterprise application and dumbing it down or making a light version. This is specific organic development aimed at that SMB or mid-market segment. And I think that makes the total cost of ownership way lower. Like they're getting into the pool from the shallow end, and they can grow with the company over time. There may be a disruption in the future where they have to upgrade to the large enterprise, but there may not be, because by that time, companies like Datascale HR, embedded technology, like we can just flip the switch and now they're on the enterprise version, right?
Yeah.
So I'm super excited about our mid-market approach going forward, and also this idea
Todd,
of
I
selling.
gotta ask. I know we're trying to give some wrap-up comments, but when you think about targeting the mid-market, does that mean that that SIs might have a different different SI specializations and pools because the implementation can be the hardest part to swallow?
Yeah, we already have SIs that are focused on that space and that have been doing very creative things to get to the right ownership model. It's not because it's not just the price; it's like
That's
what it
right.
takes to run it, right?
Yeah.
And we're way ahead that way because our partners have been innovating there for years, right? As a company, we had to catch up, frankly, right? From a commercial model perspective, and then now an organic development perspective. So, but we're there, and we're meeting our partners where they've been for a while. And companies like Imran with EPI-USE, like he's been able to deliver this mid-market capability for a while, despite the challenges that we've given him. And now we're kind of clearing that road and making it easy for everybody. Now, that's not to say that some of the SIs will not make transition to the mid-market, because some of them just have too many fixed costs, and they're too invested in the large enterprise space, and unless they do a joint venture or create a new company or something, they really can't unravel that hard cost delivery. Does that make sense, Julie?
Yeah, it sure does. Yeah, and we do a lot of, oftentimes we're helping doing the search, right? Because the software company has a lot of partners in the ecosystem, and so the search, which is what we were talking to Bonnie about just recently.
And my other thing is, my first question for anyone is, well, define what mid-market means to you,
I
right?
wasn't going to go there, Imran. I wasn't going to go there.
Hey, Todd, could I ask you, could you give us an update? I get asked this a lot. Can you give us an update on next gen time and payroll?
So next gen is a lowercase, right? We have product names, and SAP SuccessFactor time tracking is our fastest growing product with about 1,300 customers, millions of users, large companies, 300, 400,000 employee companies are using it. IBM rolled it out, for instance, to all of their associates around the world. So time is awesome, and we're releasing right now advanced scheduling capabilities for producing in industries. So if you make something, you can use this resource scheduler that's tied into all the metadata and master data that's in core HR and out of their production environments, and et cetera. It all comes together in this advanced scheduler. So that's time, workforce management, right? On the other end is the payroll side, and we have SAP SuccessFactors Payroll, which we're rolling out as we speak in the UK. We have our first couple of live customers. We're looking for our first commercial live customer in January. We have a pipeline full of folks that are signing up to be on board there, and then followed by the US. So if you have a mid-market company in the US or the UK, call me.
Very cool, man. Very cool. Well, look, I appreciate you guys. Appreciate you guys coming on. Thank you so much. Where can everybody connect with you? I know they can find Payroll BADIes on the Work2Find network, and I'm sure all the platforms. But where can folks connect with you guys?
LinkedIn.
LinkedIn.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Definitely. We'll pop that in. We'll pop the podcast in there.
As usual, Pete will put all the connections into our show notes.
Absolutely, absolutely. And thank you guys so much for what you do for payroll. Thank you for coming on the show
Thank you guys for what you do.
yeah, and sharing with us. We appreciate y'all, man. So look, we'll be back soon. Like, share, subscribe, all that stuff. And we got more content coming really quick. So stick around.